Again, welcome everybody. We're really very happy to see so many of you and coming to this, our first of a kind, because this is a way forward. Now we can reach everybody by this means. We are really very happy to have you, and we are going to give honor to the one who allowed us to be able to have this. So we're going to ask Nadine Sherlock, our local chapter executive member and office manager at UWI Mona, to bring prayers at this time. Nadine?
Thank you. Father Lord, we praise you, we thank you, we worship and adore you. Lord, we thank you so much for ACHEA. Thank you so much, Lord, this group that has allowed us to reach persons in 16 countries. Father Lord, we thank you so much, Lord, that this time when we feel alone and isolated, you have allowed us to have methods of bringing us together, not only to be together, but to learn more. Lord, I especially thank you for our guest speaker today, Mrs. Headley-Smith, who is going to bring to us one of my personal favorite topics, excellence, customer service, now or never. Lord, I look so much forward to what she's going to bring to us. I thank you, Father Lord, that even as we sit separately, we're here with you, enjoy this period. Lord, I thank you that this is the first of ACHEA's next stage. And I thank you, Lord, that at this point we dedicate this one to you, and we ask you to bless everything that ACHEA does this day forward for your glory. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, Nadine. Now, I'm going to introduce our dynamic president, Mrs. Claire Craig. And Claire is the senior IT officer at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. So I invite Claire now to bring greetings to the group. Claire, over to you. Claire?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Members and prospective members. And by the numbers we have here, I know we have quite a few prospective members, and we would be looking forward to seeing you all as part of this esteemed organization. Thank you all for registering to be part of this meeting this afternoon. Many of you will know that ACHEA is the premium higher education institution in the region. And so it is so heartwarming to see this afternoon that there are so many of you from 16 countries across the Caribbean. So it means that we are doing something good. Today, our guest speaker will be speaking about excellence in customer service. And this is what ACHEA is all about. We have been speaking as part of our strategic plan to have a meeting such as this for at least 2 years, where the chapters across the Caribbean can come together in one forum to have a meeting as this. And it takes something that the world looks at as negative and brings a benefit to us. So we are tremendously grateful for the technology that has been able to afford us to do this at this time. While other persons have to cancel their meetings or, do different things, we are able to conduct our ACHEA forum from home. We have the privilege of being in your home right now. Some of you may not be aware, but because ACHEA is a regional institution, many of our executive members are used to this mode of communicating. Our monthly meetings are held remotely. So every month, previously we used UTech, which is now Open Campus, to have our meetings. And within the last 2 to 3 years, we have been using Zoom. So Zoom this is not new to us. So we are pleased to be able to extend this experience to our wider membership and prospective membership. We do look forward to having more of these. As you know, this year we have had to cancel, some of you may know, we have had to cancel our annual conference because it is still not safe for us to be together publicly. We have to be wise, and we have to, what's the word? We have to continue to have social distancing as well as physical distancing. And because of that, the executive took the decision this year that we would cancel our face-to-face conference, which was supposed to be held in Barbados. But we are hoping to have it next year. In the meantime, however, because this is our inaugural virtual meeting, we hope to engage some of the persons who have submitted abstracts for our conference to have some of these sessions sometime during the year. So you will be hearing more from us. Please look out for email from our membership chair, who is Mrs. Valera Horton. She will be contacting you all. Look out also for information from our PRO and assistant PRO, who have done an excellent job in promoting this session this afternoon, because to have persons from 16 countries joining us is really excellent. So I wish to thank Mrs. La-Cresha Gordon-Brydson and her team at the Jamaica chapter of ACHEA, and everyone else who was responsible for pulling this together. And we look forward to a dynamic presentation by Mrs. Marie Headley-Smith. Thank you very much, and welcome to this ACHEA Forum.
Thank you, Madam President. Well said. And now, what you have been waiting for, the lady of the moment, we're going to announce soon, but I'm going to ask Michelle Holness, our PR officer, to introduce to you our guest speaker. So she'll speak a little bit about her, and then we will jump right into our presentation, Excellent Customer Service, Now or Never. Michelle?
Good afternoon, one and all. Before I introduce our guest speaker, please allow me the opportunity just to apologize for the lack of visual. This is due to unforeseen circumstances. Thank you so much. Your speaker today is an educator by profession and has been serving the teaching fraternity for nearly 30 years. Having taught at both the secondary and tertiary levels, she has proven herself to be adaptable in her delivery of customer service lecture and training within academia and the corporate world. At the University of Technology, Jamaica, where she is currently employed, she works alongside the Human Resources Department and the Office of the Customer Service Advocate in providing relevant and ongoing staff training. She has served as guest lecturer for various student groups over the past 12 years. She was the internship coordinator for the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, where she had responsibility of interacting with industry in securing placements for approximately 400 interns on an annual basis. She serves as lecturer for several modules, inclusive of customer service management. On a corporate level, our speaker has provided staff development training for government and non-government organizations over the past 14 years. She has also served as guest speaker for a myriad of events across the length and breadth of Jamaica. Under the commission of the Ministry of Commerce of the People's Republic of China, she was invited to attend a one-month seminar on developing employment service systems for developing countries. The event, held in May 2018, was hosted across 3 areas of mainland China: Chengdu, Beijing, and Chongqing. 1 year later, she was the recipient of the Emerging Leaders in the Americas Scholarship, where she specialized in a 3-week program on international teaching effectiveness, held at Humber College in Toronto, Canada. A very altruistic person by nature, she is a former board member of the Jonathan Grant High School, current board member of the JPS Foundation, officer of her place of worship, the Glad Tidings Open Bible Church, and serves as executive member for several other voluntary groups. She is known to be passionate about service delivery and does not believe that any service provider should put limitations on the value of service they can provide. She is known to stand as an advocate for any customer who is disenfranchised and is the first to encourage every customer to know their rights and privilege as a means of self-defense. I present to you Marie Headley-Smith, our guest speaker, who will address you on the topic, Excellent Customer Service, an Imperative of Successful Administration. Please receive her at this time. Mrs. Headley-Smith.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction.
You're
indeed
welcome.
You're welcome. All right, moderator.
Yes, Mrs.
Marjorie Bolero Horton.
Hi.
Mrs. Claire Craig, President of ACHEA, local and regional executive members, general members, and other participants in this forum. The pleasure is mine to address you today. This is an opportunity that we were looking forward to having face to face. But despite the challenges, I'm happy that we are still able to meet in this way. So I'll be talking to you, as was said, about excellence in customer service, now or never. And you may be wondering, why now or never? Well, further down in my presentation, you will realize that we are assured of now. There's no guarantee for tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. The pandemic is testament to that. It was Confucius who said, when a bird is about to die, its notes are mournful, but when a man is about to die, his words are good. So often does someone die, and when we consider their parting words, we are left to assume that the deceased had some premonition that their death was imminent. When we consider us as service providers, likewise, we are conscious of the very perishable state of service. And as such, we aim to serve with excellence. Know that we are alive and well, because tomorrow is promised to no man. And I'm sure you can all attest to that. We also want to leave an indelible mark for those who will walk in our footprints. And we also want to be able to leave a lasting and positive impact on those who we are here to serve. So in that vein, I'm going to be talking to you today. Just one moment. I tried to share my slide. I'm not seeing it. Is anybody able to see the slide? No?
Yes.
I heard yes?
Yes, I'm seeing
regrettably,
it.
I am not seeing it. So
I'm not seeing it.
Just give me one moment to make this.
Still loading.
Oh, it is still loading.
Okay, while you're at it, Mrs. Headley-Smith,
Yes.
participants, we're going to ask you to write any question that you have in the chat. This presentation is for 40 minutes and we'll have an additional 20 minutes and your questions will be answered at that time. So we ask you to write them in the chat, because if you put your hands up, I might not know who came first. So if you put your questions there, we will answer them afterward. Thank you, Mrs. Headley-Smith.
All right, I'm still not seeing the slide. Not sure. I did click on sharing. Let me try one more time.
We are actually seeing your Google Drive.
Oh.
Okay,
All right,
we are
here it
seeing
is.
the
It's here.
slide
showing
now.
Great,
now.
Yes.
wonderful.
But it's not in presentation mode as yet.
Oh, not sure what's happening. All right, I'll go on nevertheless.
It's showing.
Thanks.
Just
It's showing.
put it in presentation mode and then share it.
Okay, great.
So end the share, put it in
Yeah, I'm
presentation
there.
mode. Right.
Slideshow. Oh, thanks. All right, so we're talking about excellence in customer service, and we're talking about doing it now or never, because the reality is we're only assured of no. Let me first start by just greeting the ACHEA team and commending the team on the awesome work being done to keep its members up to date with relevant and meaningful information. And this information can literally boost their job performance as well as their personal lives. I wish also to thank ACHEA for the kind invitation to share on this auspicious occasion. And as was said in the prayer, I really want to thank God during this pandemic for technological advancement, without which this event would have been canceled or postponed. So the task is mine to speak to you briefly on the topic excellence in service, and to inform you that this sense of service delivery requires a great deal of urgency. Did I say urgency? Yes. The customer we see today, we might not see them again tomorrow. And so whatever we have to do must be done now. As was earlier indicated, tomorrow is promised to no one. And let me add that there is no guarantee that our customers are going to be sitting around and waiting for us to deliver or to excel. Customers have options, and our institutions only represent one of those options. As administrators, it is therefore imperative that we not only serve with excellence, but with a sense of urgency. Colleagues, please allow me to share with you 4 main points today. And the first is, we want to look at the concerns or the gaps in offering quality customer service. We want to look at our personal quests. What do we have to do about it in delivering quality service? We want to look at some strategies for delivering quality services, and then we end by looking at some benefits. So there are concerns, and it doesn't matter what we do in life. It doesn't matter how excellent we think we are at what we do. If we do step back and do a little reflection, then we would have noticed that regardless of how well we try to perform, there are some gaps. Until these gaps are identified and addressed, there will always be grave concerns, which, if not addressed, can lead to frustration. So I'm going to share with you what we call a gap model. And this was created by Parasuraman et al. In 1985. They look at 5 different gaps. And this is just the model, but we're going to look at the gaps individually. The first of the gap is what we call the customer gap. And it examines the difference between what the customer expects and what the customer perceives. As you're aware, in any organization, we will make promises. It is those promises that we promulgate to the customer that cause their expectations to be developed. And then the customer takes time out to come and experience that which we promised. And what they get is considered their perception. If there is a gap, it would be that space between their level of expectation as well as their perception. And that's what we want to talk about today. So their expectations can be formed, as a result of their cultural background, their personality, their demographics, what we advertised, and so on. Whereas their perception is formed first of all, the perception is quite subjective. So you will have 10 different customers and their perceptions are all different. And you can appreciate that their personality will impact on that. So at the end of the day, it is based on the quality of service that they receive, not necessarily the quality of service that we seek to deliver. So we want to ensure that wherever the gaps are, that we resolve them. We want to also make sure that we understand our target market, because it doesn't matter how well you try to fix a problem, until you know who you're fixing it for, there's no guarantee that we're doing a great job. We also want to understand our customers' needs and their wants. And we also want to make sure we understand what it is that they expect. So if we were to take it home to academia, if we are going to meet, for instance, the online needs of our students during this pandemic, we first need to understand their current situations. What are they? We first need to know and understand what they are currently going through at this time. Do all our students, for instance, have Wi-Fi access? Serious question to ask. Do our students have computers? If no, can all assignments be done on their mobile devices? And the next question that troubles my mind is, what will eventually happen when those who are unable to connect electronically come to the end of the rope and have nothing to show? As administrators, it doesn't matter how much we put in place to facilitate our students at this time, unless we know who our students are and what their current situations are, then we would have failed to close or minimize the customer gap. As administrators, these are issues of concern. The second gap that we want to look at is what we call the knowledge gap. And this looks at the difference between consumer expectations and management's perception. Of course, this is in keeping with the quality products or service that the manager produces. In this case, managers might not be aware of or might have incorrectly interpreted the customer's expectations. And this is, of course, in relation to the goods and services they provide. It may mean that companies are trying to meet incorrect or non-existing customer needs. In other words, you figure you know what the need is, and based on what you assume, you are now trying to create a solution. In customer-oriented businesses, for instance, it is important, ultra important, to understand what the customers need, to understand what the customers want. It's not a guessing game. To close the gap, relevant and timely research is required. The research must be relevant to your target audience. In other words, UTech cannot use UI's statistical findings because it's two different set of students with two different wants and needs. So let's look at another example that we as managers may have to examine. If the students' grades, for instance, are below expectations, the institution's management or administrators may assume that the poor grades are attributed to the students' needs to access textbooks. If we examine how we speak to our students, from time to time, we will say things like, you have to read for your degree. You need to do more reading. You need to read in a more in-depth manner. This is how we speak to them because we figure it's a failure to read that's causing their failure in performance. But let's say that institution decides to carry out a research to ascertain what is the cause of the student's failure or poor grades. You may discover that it's the need for substantial meals while on campus for the entire day that is affecting their ability to learn. In other words, their need for substantial food supersedes their needs for textbooks. And as I said before, unless we have done the research, whatever it is that we think we know we ought to do would be done in vain. Let's look now at the third, and there are 5 gaps, by the way. The third gap is what we call the policy gap. This is a gap between management's perception and service quality specifications. So, you go on the job and you have your list of things to do and you try to operate accordingly. So this gap reflects management's incorrect translation of the policies into rules and guidelines for its staff. This can include poor service designs. It could include failure to maintain or continually update your provision of good service. And this could be also a lack of standardization. This gap may see consumers seeking a similar product or better service elsewhere. In other words, your failure to meet those students' needs could result in them going to your competitors. That would be quite unfortunate. Let's look at another example of how we could fail in this regard. If, for instance, classes on your campus runs from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., the question I want to ask us is, why is it that numerous main offices across faculties are closed at 4 p.m.? Again, classes run from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Why are the offices closed at 4 p.m.? The other question is, what alternate plans are there in place to meet the needs of those students who need to be facilitated between 4 and 9? When I look at it closely, I am sure that it is based on some human resource policies why the offices would have closed early. Well, then let's challenge our thoughts elsewhere. Why are we employed at the institution in the first place? I'm sure your answer would be to serve the students. But when you look at our response to the policies, we are indeed serving ourselves. So these are some things we want to pay attention to. So policies, though good, can impede our service progress if not properly managed. We have to look at our students as priority. Our fourth gap is what we call the delivery gap. This is a gap between the service quality specifications and the service delivery. It exposes the obvious weaknesses in management's performance. Organizations that carry a delivery gap may specify the service required to support consumers, but would have subsequently failed in training their staff or even training them well. Additionally, they may have failed to put good processes and guidelines into action. As a result, employees are ill-equipped to manage the consumer's needs. So, what are the potential problems resulting from a delivery gap? When you look around us, there are many that we could identify, but I'll just share 5 of them with us today. One of these gaps could be employees' lack of product or service knowledge. Can you imagine you place a staff on the front line and that staff is ill-prepared to answer simple questions about your products and services? Why are they there? Another concern could be difficulty in managing or handling the questions and issues that the customers will raise. Thirdly, organizations having poor human resource policies. Fourthly, lack of cohesiveness within the working team. And lastly, the inability to deliver as promised. Now, as it regards the delivery gap, we can think that there are many institutions, and I can't imagine any that doesn't have its own vision or mission statement or corporate philosophies. And these are designed, but you know what is one of the ills that we have done? We have not included the relevant stakeholders in the creation of these important tools. There is also, from time to time, no clear strategic plan in terms of how we're going to be using these tools as roadmaps, or how we're going to be using them as metrics for measuring our service outcomes. Failure to do this is a clear recipe for failure. So we want to fix the delivery gap. The final of the 5 gaps is the communication gap. And this is a gap between the service delivery and the external communication. In many cases, promises are made by institutions through our promotional activities. You know, these promotional activities literally raises a customer's expectation, because if you said it, then I expect that you're going to be delivering. When this sense of overpromising fails to match the actual service delivery, this is where the communication gap is created. Consumers are left disappointed because the promises do not match with the outcome. Consequently, what do the customers do? They find your competitor. They find an alternative that will seek to satisfy their wants and needs. One of the worst things that an institution can do, for instance, is to advertise changes, advancements, developments, and we do so via the mass media, but without first effectively communicating this promotion to our customers. I want you to now imagine sending out information via the mass media about a change, a development on your campus. Your staff was not properly informed, and then the customers are now coming in to get clarity. And your staff, who is on the front line, is clueless and is therefore unable to meet the needs of that customer. In order to correct this concern, staff should be fully engaged and informed at all levels before the public is duly notified. Let us also bear in mind, colleagues, that this communication channel requires keen management involvement. And there should also be a natural flow across all areas of the hierarchical structure in order for the gap to be closed. It is not about who we want to tell, it's about who needs to know. This causes me to share a very, what I call interesting information I got from a consultant. He's Micah Solomon. He's a customer service consultant. And he said in one of his articles, you're not simply trying to serve customers. You are trying to build your students into responsible scholars and citizens. Because of this, there's a difference between serving business customers and serving educational customers. He further stated that if you seek to improve customer service in your educational institution, it is important to view all decisions through this lens. In doing so, he continued, administrators should think, how best can we develop our students into responsible citizens of this world? In concluding, he said, by reframing or by framing customer service decisions in this way, it becomes second nature to serve students better. And our students know these facts, and they're looking to us to get it right. As administrators, it is our alertness to these gaps and the potential gaps that will help us to bring closure to the student-related problems. We therefore should act expeditiously to become acquainted with the gaps that present themselves and then be able to correct them. So these are just some of the concerns that we are mindful of in academia. Now that we have looked at the concerns or gaps, we also want to be mindful of the whole communication channel. And this is just an addition to the communication gap I just mentioned. And while we understand the diagram, you know, the sender has an information that is encoded, then it is channeled, then it is decoded, and it goes to the recipient. And then there's feedback. We also want to be mindful of all the possible noise. The noise of hunger, the noise of no Wi-Fi, the noise of not being able to operate in a virtual space. And let us as administrators try to think of what our students go through. Unless we put their caps on, we will not understand their dilemma. We're in this forum and some of us might not be listening attentively. And it's not because we don't want to, but our circumstances could be forcing us to be looking elsewhere. You might be checking your phones. You might be watching TV at the same time. You might be feeding a baby. You are otherwise occupied. Be conscious that our students can go through the same dilemma while they are online trying to listen to us. They might miss out on critical points that could have helped them to pass an exam or write a paper, but reality strikes. So let's talk about how we can get involved. What are some of the things that we can do as individual administrators to make things right? Every one of us serving in our institution, we are expected to deliver customer service, whether or not we are on the front line. In other words, you might be the gardener, you might be the security guard, you might be the cleaner, you might be a faculty member, you might be someone who sits at the front desk. Regardless of where you sit, front, back, middle, outside, part of your duty is to serve the customers. This is justified by the fact that the main aspect of our job is in support of education from the point of admission through to post-graduation. Here's the big mistake many of us make. We figure that because the students have now graduated, we are done with them. Wrong. Students will return for transcript. Students will return for recommendations. Students will return to seek jobs. Our relationship with our students are never over. The level of service we offer, therefore, must go beyond the mere mandate of the institution and should embrace our personal quest to deliver with excellence. In other words, we need to want to without being prompted. In doing so, we are expected to know and appreciate all categories of our stakeholders. We should also seek to sharpen our competencies and ensure that we go beyond merely satisfying clients. We want to create a delight. In order for administrators to excel in customer service delivery, there are 3 points I want to ask you to consider. It's not a mandate, it's a consideration, but I want you, before I even say it, to think of the impact it can create in your working space. The first of my recommendation is that every administrator should develop a passion to serve. You should want to serve. When you look at children, there's so much that you can learn from them. You can know from an early stage who loves to serve and who wants to be served. If we're going to be working in a service environment, regardless of our position, we must be service oriented. As a matter of fact, a true leader is first a servant. And as a Christian, I can tell you that my Savior Jesus is an example of that. So you must develop a passion to serve. I am aware that for many persons, we are complacent with doing what the job requires, and that's where the buck stops. We, however, need to reflect on what part of the puzzle is missing and do that corrective action. If we simply do what the script indicates and fail to put our personal touch on the activity, then not only would we have failed as individuals, but we would have also caused our institution to have failed. The core ingredient, my friends, is that personal touch that we put on service. That personal touch is what I call passion. It is that innate desire to serve with excellence, regardless of who it is that we're serving. You know, there are many of us who really have a bias. I will just serve you a cup of tea if you're just a normal client coming into my cafe. But if you look anything like former President Obama or the premier of your particular country, then my service goes to a higher level. It's a natural bias that we have. But let us remember that quite often all our customers are wearing masks. And I'm not talking about the masks that we're now wearing during this pandemic. We're talking about their faces being fully covered. We don't know who is behind the mask. That person you're serving might not be a normal student. They could be a mystery shopper. And so at the end of the day, the passion with which you serve them can augur well for your institution. So we can, for instance, boost our passion by just getting up in the morning and being ready to serve. You know, you get up with that pep in your step, you're literally on cloud 9, and I want to do this, and I'm going to do this. And that's the attitude that we want to use in our delivery. Once we have put that attitude on like our clothes, then we can now begin to strategize how we are going to deliver by going that extra mile. And I want to caution you that whatever you do by going the extra mile, that you do not compromise any of your institutional policies or your personal values. That's very critical for us to note. The next thing I want us to consider is about being proactive. Each administrator should strive to be proactive in our service delivery. This means that we do not wait on situations to happen before we seek to create a fix. It requires the creativity of a passionate person who will anticipate what is likely to go wrong and put in place all the relevant risk management schemes that will prevent or minimize the possibilities. Not only that, but it will entail sharing possible solutions with team members and also ensuring that these information shared are documented. You never can tell when you'll have to draw on them or gain credit for creating them. One popular proverb highlights the fact that he who fails to plan, plans to fail. My task as a servant, as a service provider, is to be proactive. And the best way to be proactive is to plan for it. The third point I want to bring to your attention is that as administrators, we need to be cognizant of the relevance of performance metrics, or we may want to call them key performance indicators. These are relevant to our institution, very relevant. These are tools that help to provide insights into the successful path we and our team have been undertaking. They could include our overall scores. When you look at your students' scores and they are all above average, it makes your institution look good. I don't know about the other areas of the region, but in Jamaica, when it comes to our primary school examinations, our students, upon graduating from primary school, they want to go to some of the best high schools in Jamaica. How do they measure them? Output. They look at the scores of those students, how well they do in the CSEC exam. Where are those students now that they have completed university and are working? These are key performance indicators. You want to look at things like your academic plan. Every institution must have an academic plan. Annual reports, strategic plans, profile of your institution via the mass media, your cultural practices. All these things, among many others, can be considered as key performance indicators. Now, when you think of yourself as one with a vested interest in your job and your place of employment, you do not want to overlook these vital information, as you want to be able to use them as some guide. You want to be able to use them as a roadmap for your progress from an academic standpoint. I can share with you an example of what happened at an actual institution. One administrator was asked to reach some graduates because they needed 5 testimonials to place in a newsletter. She received no response after sending out over 150 emails. And that's emails to the graduates. She eventually started making calls. And after calling about 50 persons, she discovered from their feedback that these students felt ill-treated while on campus. And this is their own conversation. While at the institution, they were ill-treated. So now that the institution is behind them, they would rather keep things that way. In other words, they do not want to do anything to help the institution. This is unfortunate, and it could lead us into another conversation, but I'll hold that point for now. The negative key performance indicator, of course, doesn't mean that all is lost. It could be used as a springboard to changing your institution's image, and it means changing your image from the perspectives of your current students. In other words, do not allow one more student to go through the gates of your institution feeling like that set of students who felt that now that the institution is behind us, we will have nothing to do with it. As administrators, it is imperative that we seek to do a radical and, for others, incremental attitudinal shift in order to reflect one that is service-oriented. If we are going to be serving, we can't just be playing with a script given to us by HR. We need to put our all in it. So we looked at the gaps. We looked at the personal quest, and I want us to take it to another level by looking at strategies. Strategies for delivering excellent service. We're going to start by being responsive, but before that, let us bear in mind that there is no particular strategy that will be perfect for all institutions nor for all administrators. I therefore suggest that you pay close attention to the ones that will best suit your institution or your target audience. Using the right tools in your educational institution will help you to make the strategies easier, not just for the students, but for fellow administrators, because as you know, we work as a team. So our first one is that we need to be responsive. Now, there are some questions I want us to pay keen attention to at this time. Do you know that school is a highly stressful environment for an overwhelming number of students? We might not know because we see the students when they're eating, when they're playing, when they're going to the parties. We don't see them in their quiet space and know the awesome responsibility that they carry on their shoulder. Are you also aware that students actually go through a variety of periods of high stresses during their schooling? Have you ever tried to recall some of the challenges you or other persons you know of might have gone through while preparing for school or attending school? Let me remind you, in case you have forgotten. Before starting school, students undertake admissions tests. You would be surprised to know how stressful that is, trying to get that perfect score. You would be surprised. This requires a great degree of stress. The other thing that they go through is they complete applications which come with myriads of glitches. For us who work on the system, we go in and we press this button, press that button, and application is done. Can you imagine someone seeing that portal for the very first time? Or can you imagine how intimidating it is for that high school graduate to take up your paper application form and to see those whole lot of pages and wondering, gosh, do I have enough information to fill this out? You don't understand how stressful it can be. Or let me continue. They endure a long waiting period, stressed about the level of success. Did I make it? Was my application accepted? Am I going to get in? We don't understand how painful it is. Then they go on another journey, which we call the prospect of graduating. And we think this is the easiest part because they're heading out now. But before this, they will have to be responsible for passing exams and getting qualifying grades. The big talk for them is their GPA and how attractive it looks. As administrators, we can seek to help to reduce student stress level and make the experience better for them. Wondering when and if they will get a response from the school should be the last thing on their mind. Quick responses. Did I say we should do service now? Quick responses, whether through social media, email, etc., will reduce the stress during those late night cram sessions or during their admission period. Being responsive, colleagues, is one of the best ways to deliver a good student experience. All institutions should have in place some goals for responding to different types of requests. For example, there could be a standard set for all admissions emails to be received and acknowledged within 24 hours. I don't think that is difficult. If it's not an actual acknowledgement, it could be an automated acknowledgement, but students need feedback. By explicitly stating this expectation, admissions team members would know why their responsibilities are and can be prioritized, right? So they could, prioritize their inbox accordingly, just to make sure that the needs of the students are met. This will therefore prompt them to reply to incoming queries quickly and efficiently. The next thing I want to talk about is about us being available. Getting the right information into the hands of the right person at the right time is critical when it comes to providing great customer service. Being available means that everybody knows where to get the information when they need it, and that includes our constituents. Administrative staff should make it easy for every stakeholder to connect with the staff or administrator they need. It could be the IT desk, It could be the admissions office. And sorry for picking on the people who work in admin. It's just one of the easiest ones to pick on at this time. It could be the finance department. Administrators should make themselves available for students to talk to if they need assistance. Being proactive about reaching out and connecting with stakeholders in your school is very important. One way of doing this is by using all the channels to keep our stakeholders informed, and not just informed, but engaged. We could say we use for all our organizations, as far as I'm concerned, have some kind of orientation. But let's be real, colleagues. Orientation for most students is one time in 3 years or one time in 4 years. Let us be real. All the information that we would have passed on to them might not be remembered. And so in very creative ways, from time to time, we need to update our students. Years ago, when I taught in the high school system, this is how I described many parents. They simply came in the first form and placed their students in daycare. And when they get to fifth or sixth form, the parents would come and retrieve them. We cannot treat our students like that. It can't be a case where we do an orientation which might run for a week, and we tell them that they should have taken notes and do their own recordings. So every time they want information on what transpired in orientation, they should just go back to their files. It's not as easy as that. And in our own time and space, we know the reality. So orientation is good. But what about ongoing town hall meetings in large groups and small groups? It's another way of keeping them engaged, allowing them to talk and vent. We can also use our portals. We can use our notice board, and I know they don't read the notice board. That's true. It's the cry of every administrator's heart. But let's be real. What is the color of your notice board? Is it black or is it white? No wonder they pass it by. We can get colorful and creative. What they do online is colorful and creative. Why should they be forced to read a normal black or white notice board? Let's be real. We can send them text messages. They're always on their gadgets. We can do the normal emails. We can do directional signs. And I'm sure that there are many other examples that we could consider. This means that even if your team isn't available outside of school hours, there are options to keep our students, our constituents, our colleagues informed. You know, a self-service portal where everyone can find what they need is helpful in organizing resources and providing information 24/7. Our students need that. Simple. Ensure that everyone knows where they can find the information they need. This, in my opinion, is the epitome of being available when students need your administrative talents. Your talents don't have to be physical. Your talents don't have to be expressed face to face. It can be explored in so many other ways. The next thing I want us to look at is just us being service oriented. Many persons don't see it as a strategy, but believe me, it is. The provision of great customer service means giving stakeholders what they want, as well as to solicit their feedback. It is critical to also remember that the basics of customer service can also go a long way to a better experience. It therefore augurs well to be polite, and we learn these things when we were children. Be polite, be friendly, be unbiased, be personable when interacting with your clients. Even in the busiest times of the year, where students, and I tell you, I'm getting a feedback, I'm not sure if all is well.
Just 1 second there.
Yes.
This is Headley-Smith. This is Marjorie here, moderator.
Sure.
Your time is almost up. I would have to ask the participants if we can go an extra 5 or so minutes.
Okay.
I don't think participants would mind. So we can give you another 5 or so minutes, because we had actually said it was 40 minutes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Unless
right.
Okay.
Sure, that's fine. All right. So we want to be as service oriented as we can in ensuring that we deliver. How can we do that? We can have 24-hour live chats with our students, just making sure they can always connect. We can also create help desks. Our students are mindful of the impact of help desks. Hastening on, we can build what we call a customer journey map. It's a literal diagram that shows you all the areas the students will explore from they start until they finish university, or whichever school it is, right? The issues they'll go through and how the challenges can arise in those individual issues and possible solutions to each of them. And I think I have some other maps. I'm sure when this is sent to you, you'll be able to go through them in your own time and space. This looks at someone who wanted to drop a module and the difficulty that he encountered just in his own mind, and in the end, how it was resolved. So we have to have these present in our working space to figure out ways in which we can help our students. This is another one that looks at the journey of a grad student from they start until they end. And I'm sure it takes us beyond the point where they end. We also want to be mindful of the students' persona, the general persona of our stakeholders. Who are they? You know, are they academic wanderers? Are they great escapers, you know, running away from something and coming to college? You know, are they golden ticket chasers? What exactly do they want? We have to know that. Another strategy is that when we are collecting these surveys, which we do a lot of, we want to be able to not just collect, but analyze them and use the results in a meaningful way to solve the students' problems. We also want to use the correct tools. What tools did we promise? What tools did we invest in? And to what degree are we using them in a useful way, in a reasonable way, in a timely way to ensure that students' needs are met? Another strategy could be your organizational drills. You know, in many organizations, the workers come together in the morning, they gather, they go through their mantra, they repeat their mission and vision statements, their corporate philosophies, and they plug that into what they should achieve for the day. And so every step of the way throughout that given day, that given week, that given month, that quarter, that year, they are always mapping their deliverables into what they have been drilled to remember. And so it helps a great deal in keeping them up to date with what they need to achieve and how it is that they're going to satisfy their customers in that manner. I'm moving a little faster to make sure we meet the deadline. We also want to ensure that the institution is built on values. What are your core values and how are these core values communicated to your constituents, right? Do they know about integrity? And do they know that the students are judging them on that level? Because it's in your core values, the students expect it. One says, inspire smiles. At the end of every service delivery, are we the kind of service providers who ensures that each person walks away with a smile, or does it really matter? These are issues that we need to give consideration. The next one talks about treating our staff as ambassadors. Not as ambassadors, but ambassadors of a premium brand. If you value the brand of your institutions, then you want to ensure that whoever represents you does so in style, does so with a value that is beyond measure. This is critical because your customers are going to always remember that. We want to make sure that the relevant training is done. It's an imperative of HR to do ongoing training, but we just don't want to train because there's a budget for training. We want to train as per the need. We want to train as per the schedule. As HR specialists, administrators should have an idea of the issues that will require training and put strategic plans in place and create that schedule and also ensure that the right persons are captured for the training. Corporate social responsibility is another one. Not only does it have us serving the wider environment or society, but it gets us to work together. So if I go out to do some kind of charity work with my students, we're not like students and lecturer out there working together. We are now a team of workers seeing to the improvement of our society. And that is just a beautiful strategy that organizations that are visionaries are now implementing. Tools and equipment need to be upgraded from time to time. Administrators should report failed equipment. You do not want your equipment to fail in the midst of service. That would not augur well for your institution or the people you serve, nor would it augur well for you. And lastly, in our strategies, we want to also think of engaging our graduates. I shared earlier on about the danger of not engaging our students and the impact it can have on them when they graduate. We want to know where they are. We want to know how we can be of service to them in a continuous manner. We want to know how they too can help us. So as administrators, you might not all have the autonomy to put in place the requisite strategies, but you can at least voice them to those persons above you. We want to end by looking at benefits. And I guess this is the sweetest part of the story, because nobody wants to undertake any duty without knowing the benefits to be derived. I will not share all of them in the interest of time. So we know that for management, well, in general, they want to know what will be the bottom line. How much are we going to make out of this? But before we get to the bottom line, there are some bits of hard work that must be done. But in general, here are the benefits I have in mind. Sustained satisfaction of our customers. It feels good to know that I made you feel good. And that in itself is a benefit. And it's a benefit that goes unnoticed for many service providers. Having an understanding of the diversity of our constituents is another benefit. Knowing who they are helps a great deal. I remember many, many years ago, in a class, I was using an example, and the case came out of Barbados. And that situation was current in the Jamaican news. What I didn't pay attention to is that there was a student in the class from Anguilla, and she didn't have a clue what we were referring to. She held up her hand and said, "Miss, what is this about?" And then I had to take time to explain. Since that year, I have made it my duty to know where all my students are from. It's important, so I can call on their expertise and I can share relevant information that they can identify with. It also empowers all our stakeholders to know that we're doing well. Students know that when they come for service, they will be served. And I know that when the students come for service, I know what to do to make them walk away with a smile. It helps us to also do effective mapping of all our stakeholders. Where are the students in their trajectory on campus? Are they in their third year? And what are some of the potential issues they could be facing in their third year? For instance, I have a fourth year group, and I've always wondered, why is it in the second semester nobody's hardly in class? They are so caught up with doing their major projects. They are caught up with doing internship during that semester as well, and so it affects their class attendance. So knowing who they are and knowing what they go through has helped me to better reach out to them. And so I have adjusted the assignments, so whether they are in class or out of class, they can still participate and get their grades. We get the stakeholders buy-in in our decision making. So now that we know how to offer service, we are going to be suggesting to all our stakeholders what it is that we intend to do. We want their agreement, because when they're all in it together, it makes the life for all of us easier. Potential increase in admissions and enrollment is something that all institutions strive for, because it is one of those things that will lead to the last of the benefits, which is financial growth. I left the best for last, however, job security, because we're administrators. If we don't do it right, if our students are not enrolling in our programs and our school, then all of us will not be needed. Put it that way. In other words, our positions will automatically become redundant. As we serve, we make our organization that premier place that everybody will want to be. That premier place that every student and prospect would want to apply to as their place of choice to study. As I do the wrap, as our colleagues and universities strive to help more students persist and succeed, it's time to have a deeper conversation on campus about how we serve our customers and our constituents. As the way forward, we as administrators, collectively and individually, need to reflect on these questions. And there are 5 questions I want us to think of as I wrap. What do service competencies look like in our sector? In other words, we are comparing what we now deliver with what exists outside of our place of work. What roles do faculty and staff have in improving service on campus? How do we create physical environments that foster better service? Where do we look for effective model of service excellence? Or if I should put it another way, do you think that persons could actually turn to us as that model and ask for our help? And last question, how can we best train and certify our people? In conclusion, whether your institution is for profit or not, customers need to be served. Improving the quality of customer service between students and administrators can have a lasting impact on the students' experience and even how prepared they are to enter the world of work. Yes, customer service in education can indeed make a big difference in our students' lives. It can also transform administrators' lives, and this in the long run can positively impact the institution. It is imperative for us to act professionally. It is imperative for us to act strategically. It is definitely imperative for us to act now, the only time that we are assured of. I thank you for listening.
And I'd say amen to that. I'm sure if we could all clap, we would be giving you a clap, Rosemary. Thank you so very much for
Well
this
done.
time.
Well
You're
done.
welcome. You're welcome.
Presentation. And I see we have one of our stakeholders who is a university, it's a graduate student, and that person said, it's gone. I wanted to really say what that person said, but somehow I'll get back to that. But really thank you for this timely and informative presentation. And we are taking out of here that a lot depends on us as the administrators. That's and right. ACHEA, we welcome this opportunity. You spoke about training, and I know at one stage we were trying to link up with some of the other tertiary education institutions to offer some courses that would help to develop some of our administrators. And I'm seeing some of the comments which are coming on. Very good presentation, excellent indeed. Thank you very much. So they are there, and I'm sure we'll send some of those to you. Yes. And one of the things that I get from that is that you're saying there's a particular institution, I understand it says, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And that
Ritz Carlton.
It was, right. Because you talk about the gardener.
Yes.
And that can make or break an institution, and persons didn't know. So we really need to, everybody has to be a part.
Everybody, yes, that's right.
Going forward. Thank you so very much. And we have some questions here. And I'm going to go to see what they are. Just give me a moment, please. Food for thought, excellent, excellent. Now I'm gonna ask our attendees, if you have any more questions, can you put on there? And I'll pass on all these wonderful, great, valuable, excellent presentation. I think we had some faculty persons here as well. I'm going to try to see if I can find their questions and get to you. Just give me a moment, please.
Sure.
Right. Okay, here's a graduate student. I'm enjoying the delivery as a graduate student at the university. I can attest to the fact that orientation will determine the future of a university. That was one of the persons. Here's a question from Donna. How do we ensure that our KPIs are appropriate for the delivery of good customer service to our students who is measuring?
Well, one of the things I said earlier is you want to make sure that all stakeholders are involved. If as administrators, we all stay in our little corner and we plan all the KPIs, we determine that this is what we are going to be using and we trust its outcome. If the students are not a critical part of the initiative, then it makes no sense. We need to get student management involved in creating and analyzing all these KPIs. They must be involved. So there's no perfect way of designing one. And I can't tell you that there's a perfect tool for any particular institutions, but the students must be involved.
Yes, okay. And knowledge sharing in that is also key. You know, some things might not be relevant to everybody, but there are certainly some things that the expectation of our students, wherever you go, there's a particular expectation that you have. Here's another question, and this is from an academic. As academic leaders, managers, administrators, what should be our primary customer service focus to meet the needs of our students during this time of crisis?
Primary focus. For me, the most important thing is keeping in touch. Over the past few weeks, I've had a growth in the number of students linking with me online. Because what I've done is to ask each to reach another. We've sent the emails out, we've sent the WhatsApp out, and I've always been disturbed that I'm not hearing from everybody. I really want to know where they are. And the reality is, keeping in touch, knowing what their social situation is the most important thing right now. Because the truth is, as administrators, we could be trying to get them the lessons, but where they're at right now, the lessons will not help. So what are their needs? Their needs might be to get Wi-Fi. Their need might be to just connect and to know that you are interested in them. Critical. I have a student who is all the way in Wales, and I linked with him recently to say, how are you? Is everything okay? And he said, Miss, I can't even answer your question. It's just so interesting to know that you would have sought to find me to know how I am. He said, Miss, it means a lot. So as far as I'm concerned, knowing where our students are, just ensuring that they're safe is paramount. Everything else comes after.
Okay, thank you. Dorothy here says, we cannot overstate the importance of the initial experiences of the students. Therefore, we need to do better screening of the persons we hire in customer service. What I would say, Dorothy, based on that, is not only customer service. I remember I do recruitment, and I remember going to a school and somebody said to me, you know, a lot of our students are not, they're qualified for a particular area, but they're not going to that area because it is said, that was some years ago, it is said that they don't treat the students well. And so the students were qualified for that area, but they weren't going there, they were going elsewhere in other programs. So it is important that everybody, not only the administrators, because the administrators could do an excellent job, and when they go to the faculty, as you say, that the experience is something very negative. So one set could be doing a great job, an excellent job, and the other set not doing the job. So they just, you know.
Yeah. But again, it speaks again to the relevance of training. You know, who supervise the persons who are underperforming? When the students, do the students also get an opportunity to share their feedback? Who evaluates these feedback and what is done about them? So the reality is that there's no guarantee that everybody is performing excellently when serving our students, but there has to be a monitoring system in place. And persons must be held responsible for poor service, regardless of who the students are.
That's a fact.
Agreed.
Let me see. Is there any question? There's a lot of talking here. Let me see. Is there any question that we have? You could unmute your mic if you have a question, and I will take that question. If you had a question in the chat, there's a lot of chat, and so I might miss it. So if you have a question, you may Raise your hand or you can unmute your mic and speak at this time. Anyone?
Hi, Marjorie. This is Desiree Antonio. I'm from Antigua.
Oh, hi, Desiree. Welcome. Please go ahead.
Yes, I had a question in the chat, so I'm just going to read it.
Yes.
Some students may have had the preferred option of face-to-face attendance to university, but suddenly they have been thrust into full online learning mode. It is beyond our control, of course, but how do we provide a balance or respond to the expected student experience with what is now the only option they have for the delivery of their university experience, at least for
I would want to say that's a hard question.
It is.
And it's hard because we're dealing with students as a collective body. You know, if we were to talk to one or two, there'd be an easy fix for them. But the reality is that it's true. We promised most of our students face-to-face. The pandemic has forced us to seek this alternative. And one of the things we have to have is a gentle conversation with them to just remind them that this is not what we really wanted to offer. It really isn't. But it is the reality of what we must do to keep the educational program ongoing. One of my recommendations for UTech and for those who might be interested is when the dust has settled and we have resumed our face-to-face classes, we perhaps per module or per program need to have maybe an overall workshop to see how best we can help to fit in where we might have lost some of our students. Just a workshop. Simple. You might have missed out on some of the things we did online because you just didn't connect with the virtual space. But from a face-to-face perspective, come to this town hall meeting, come to this mass lecture, and let's talk about it. It could be 1 hour, it could be 2 hours, just to help them to regain that personal touch. Remember, all persons can't learn in a virtual space, and that's the reality. So whatever way we can meet them, we just have to do that. Sometimes, again, a phone call can help, but a phone call is only going to reach the minority.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, as they cry for help, we just have to listen.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you again. It's saying my internet. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. I hear somebody here saying that the policy gap tends to be, one of the more frustrating portion of the customer service journey, both internal and external customers. Why?
I guess it's the reality that when a staff is employed, they're employed to deliver in keeping with a given policy. But quite often management do not give workers the autonomy to solve problems. Again, I could use an hospitality experience. In some of our hotels, we have the management allocates a certain portion of funding to every member of staff, regardless of their rank, to solve a problem. In other words, do not allow the guest to run to front desk or to call the general manager to solve a problem. From your vantage point, you are allocated X amount of funds that you can use to pay for solving problems. The reality is that workers are forced to embrace policies. They are not forced to think of the social standing of the customer and how they can explore ways of helping them. Also, from a departmental standpoint, I don't think that many of the staff meetings are held in such a way that we look at problems and how we as a department, as a unit, can fix these problems directly versus allowing them to escalate. So the reality is that for many workers, the policy is all they were given and it's all they are permitted to use. So at the end of the day, quite often we can't even judge them as being unfair to their students. It's all the ammunition they have been given, unfortunately. But it's an opportunity again for us to explore ways in which we can change. We're not asking anybody to put policy aside. We're saying we can't depend solely on the policy. Every day new issues arise. And if you look at even what this pandemic is doing to us, every government has a policy in place in terms of what we're going to do today or for the next 7 days. And each day they come with a different change. Why? Because when they go back to the drawing board, they discover loopholes, and the loopholes need to be fixed. So yes, we have our policies in place, but if we see where a policy falls short, then in the soonest possible time. No, not tomorrow, not next week or next year. We need to start addressing those.
And this is our last question. Audrey, can you ask your question? And your hand was up, but it's a lot and to go back to. So if Audrey is still there, I'm going to ask Audrey to ask her question at this time. And this is the last question. And then I will ask our Vice President to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Marjorie. Thank you so much, Doc, for your presentation. Excellent, captivating.
Oh, I'm not Doc yet. But I received that. The
yes,
prophetic
it's prophetic. It's prophetic. Well done. I'm glad that you shared from, I would say, using two lenses, that of the academic and that of, in a sense, an administrator.
Yes.
And it is not unusual that sometimes we find that tensions seem to arise between the two groups. There's a pointing of finger.
Yes.
This person fell short or that person fell short. How do you think we may bridge the gap in the best interest of our students? What ideas could you share, you know, to minimize those kinds of gaps and to increase effectiveness and efficiency for our students?
I think one of the first things that we need to do is to help our students to identify the different responsibilities. What's the faculty responsibility and what's the administrative responsibility? We also need to have a sharing of ideas between faculty and admin, because the truth is, quite often I don't know, as a faculty member, I don't know where the admin's responsibility stops. And vice versa, they don't know where mine stops. So again, there needs to be, right. In my department, when we have staff meeting, there are some staff meetings that are held with faculty and admin, because there has to be a sharing of ideas. Each person's role can't be hidden. And sometimes too, in even our town hall meetings, we need to have all those stakeholders involved. When we're planning strategies, we need to have the stakeholders involved. We need to share our ideas as we plan them with our students, and we need to get their feedback. And we need to find out if what we have strategized so far will be seen as meaningful to them when implementation time comes. Critical. One of the things I did, I remember once having a challenge in how faculty and admin would have been dealing with our students. And the students consistently plagued the office with their complaints. So what I did, I gave them a customer service assignment to do a survey on the office staff. And in the survey, they would ascertain the best practices and those that we needed to do away with. And when we were finished, we had them do a presentation to the admin staff. And this presentation was also communicated to faculty. Yes. Another group did a similar survey of the faculty, presented to them, and we shared the findings with the admin staff. And so when we put that all together, we found that we were all at fault. And at the end of the day, it was the students who were shortchanged. And then we had to make a decision. Are we going to continue to shortchange our students, or are we going to fix the ill? It works.
Excellent. Excellent. I like that. That's workable. Thanks much.
Thank you very much. And so at this time, I'm sorry for those, we won't be able to take all the questions. At this time, I'm not sure if we might be able to answer some of them and give a response to you afterwards. But I'm going to ask Mrs. Marvet Facey Thompson, to our Vice President, ACHEA, and Assistant to our Vice Chancellor, to give the voters thanks at this time. Marvet?
I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. I think a lot has been said, and I also think that the outpouring of great presentation and thanks for a comprehensive and thought-provoking presentation from our participants really has already given the vote of thanks. Anyway, my duty is to tell Mrs. Marie Headley-Smith, thank you very much for not just thought-provoking, but it was clear, it was concise, and it was very timely. Because as you know, we're struggling right now with this corona pandemic, and our students are, I'm sure, at a loss. So this presentation is very timely, and Mrs. Headley-Smith started her presentation with a quote. It takes months to find a customer and seconds to lose one. And I think that set the tone for her presentation. Our students, I've been in several management meetings, and one of the questions that tends to come up quite often is students who are challenged right now. Some don't have connectivity, much less a laptop. You know, how as administrators, we're reaching out to these students and assisting them because their work needs to be done. We're still going to set exams, whether it's face-to-face or online, and the students need to do these exams. So those are some things to think about. Thank you also for going through the 5-step gap model. It's an eye-opener. And even though we know a lot of these things, it is great and always good to be reminded. So without taking too much time, thank you again. And I am sure I can tell you, Mrs. Headley-Smith, that if you were sitting live, presenting live to us at a conference, it would have been a very lively discussion. So I want to thank you for taking the time out to present to us, and we are very grateful. And I just want to encourage all our participants to, if you're not a member of ACHEA, please join. We have a lot of benefits. And one of these is a session like this. And we'll be doing a lot more online sessions. Thank you, La-Cresha, also for making this possible with your team. Wonderful, I enjoyed it. I'll be thinking about the points that you made. Thank you very much on behalf of ACHEA and the participants.
Thank you, Marvet. And so participants, we have come to the end of this, our first online forum. And going forward, I'm sure we're going to have many more. What we are going to suggest, we'll keep this open a little bit more. And we're going to ask you to send us some topics that we can't promise to do all of them. But if you send something that you're interested in, I'm sure La-Cresha and team would look at it to see which of them, you know, based on the demand. We're going to also invite you, I'm the secretary, as you understand, members. So if you're interested in becoming a member of ACHEA, could you just send me a private message here, or you have the telephone number I sent to some persons. You have the telephone number, the email address. You could send, and I will send you the relevant information. Thank you again, and please keep safe, everybody. Remember social distancing wherever you are. So we look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Might I add, Marjorie, the final word to say, I've noticed a number of persons have been asking about the presentation. Of course, we have recorded, so we will share it via different platforms. So you'll be made aware of same in an email as to where you'll be able to locate the presentation at the appropriate time. Okay, thanks much again on the Jamaica chapter.
Bye. Remember.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have
Thank
a
you
good rest
again.
of the week.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandy.
Hi, how are you doing?
This is Primrose. I'm fine.
Bye, everyone. Everybody saying bye.
Okay, bye. Take care.
Rose Brown.
Yes.
Hi.
Janice.
Hi.
Hi, Sandy.
Bye.
Good, thanks. Good,
Donna,
thanks.
are you still there from the Bahamas? Have you left? Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye from Bahamas.
Bye, Mrs. Orton.
Yes, bye. Thanks from the
Bye,
Bahamas
everyone.
and all the islands.
Bye, everybody. Great presentation.
Bye, Paulette.